I'm so deeply honored and grateful that you're joining me for a fresh approach to painting, Gateway to the Inner Artist. Easy on the Eyes 1. We're painting Beauty Junkie, which is purple raining down on a brilliant purple background. We're doing hard techniques the easy way. We're going to create reflection by using gold leaf and pigment. You'll need a black canvas for this painting. So you can either buy a store-bought, already gessoed canvas, or a golden opportunity has arrived for you to repurpose an existing canvas. To repurpose, use golden gesso. This gesso has an oily finish, so stir it up well. I'm taking a palette knife that's on the wide side. I chose to use a plastic one. You can use any utensil. You can even use a brush to accomplish this task. But here we are applying the gesso to repurpose the canvas. This cover is absolutely wonderful. And as you continue to paint it onto the canvas, it will cover completely. When our gesso is completely dry, and I know you're wondering, do I have to sand that canvas? Not in this instance. But if you repurpose a canvas, you should either gesso with white or black. The gesso makes the surface absorbent, so it will take your acrylic paint more easily. The next step is to paint the base coat on this black canvas. I'm going to use a different kind of paint than what's in your usual list. We use heavy bodies most of the time, but I've found a joy in using this particular diazonine purple soft body. It's smooth, and the Liquitex paints that we use are buttery, but this is even more buttery. This might be a great opportunity for you to experience a different type of paint. I'm going to scoop some of the purple out of the container, put it in another container. You're going to see why I'm doing this, because I'm going to add a little bit of water to that and a squeeze of light violet. The reason I'm using the light violet is because the diazonine purple on the black surface ends up being too dark. I'm going to mix up the diazonine purple with the violet color, and I'm looking and seeing it's not light enough, so I'm going to add a squeeze more of the violet. Okay, so when I paint it right onto my canvas, I'm purposely using a very large brush to do this, so I can get nice smooth strokes. I don't mind if my marks show, because that will add a little more interest in the final painting. I'm going to cover over the black, but I don't mind if the black shows through. Matter of fact, I want a little bit of that black to show through. Some of my original painting that I repurposed is peering through on the sides. That's okay, but this is the time to cover over that area as well with the purple. Now we're ready for the pigment. Pigment comes in small and large containers. I suggest that you purchase the small containers, even buy a multi-pack of pigment so you can get used to using it. We're going to use violet pigment for the center of our flower, and we're going to use green pigment for our leaf. The best way is to use a brush or use a palette knife to to scoop out just what you want. This pigment is extremely powdery, so place it right where you want the center of your flower to be. Okay, that's good. Next, I'm going to put my green pigment on. Switch brushes so I don't mix up the pigment. Pigment is what they make paint out of. So you are using very pure color. I'm just placing that on the canvas, kind of in the shape of a leaf, but doesn't have to be perfect. Now I'm going to take a spray bottle and I'm going to spray the pigment gently in an upward motion. I'm going to also spray around the pigment in a circle. I'm going to spray now the leaf, the green leaf, and keep that a little more isolated. But your pigment will spray out. Not to worry, that's exactly what you want it to do. Now it's time for the gold leaf. Gold leaf will actually stick to the canvas if the area is wet. So we'll add a little more water. We've got water around our flower, we've got water around our leaf. Our gold leaf is going to go around the flower, and what small residue of gold leaf we have left from our page, we're going to put in the bottom left corner and a piece in the bottom right corner. So that tells me that I need some water in the left and a touch of water in the right. This is how gold leaf comes. It comes in a package of sheets, and you're just going to need one sheet for this painting. So I'm going to lift off my sheet. You see how it is? It's like it's gold. Now, there are different types of gold leaf as well. Some are pure gold. This particular one is not pure gold. I'm going to rip that page with my hands, and I'm going to actually shape by pulling off some corners. This is how I'm going to end up with some extra pieces. Whoops! See how loose that is? Okay, I'm going to now place my gold leaf. See how quickly that sticks? Right here, let it tear, and I'm going to put it all the way so it comes to the top of the canvas and actually even comes off the top. That's one side. Now the other piece of gold leaf, I'm going to rip some sharp edges off of this. So I don't need the whole thing, but I also don't want to have square or rectangular edges. I'm going to place the other piece of the leaf on the other side. This is all wet from my spray bottle, so it's sticking. I'm just going to pat that down. I think I want one more piece over here. So now I have completed a circle around the center of my flower. I'm going to take the rest of my pieces from the sheet and place them in the bottom left corner. The piece that has a point, I'm going to put it pointing toward the flower. I'm giving my painting some direction. I've got another piece here. Whoops. And I'm going to take a small piece, and again it has a point. I'm going to put this right here, directing at the flower. This is where my signature is going to go as well. So I've now put my gold leaf where I want it. I've shaped my flower with it. I'm going to take the brush that I used to paint the purple on the canvas, and since that's still wet with a little purple on it that I didn't clean yet, I'm going to wet that up somewhat. It's a little dry. And I'm going to loosely paint over the gold leaf. And by doing this, it's sticking, the gold leaf is sticking to the canvas, and I'm getting a little bit of my purple color, which is my purpose, on top of the gold leaf. Patting down my seams so that when it dries, it adheres to the canvas. Now I'm ready for my stem. I'm going to use an angled brush because that'll be easy for me to draw in a nice curvy stem. Picking up some hooker green and alizarin crimson, that's how I get my darkest darks. I'm going to now come down, curve over to where my leaf is, and then wind around just inside my gold leaf collection in the left corner. Pick up a little more of the paint, and this is still wet, so I can't paint too much in this area, but I'm just going to create some shape around the center where my pigment is still wet. Draw in the leaf shape right around that wet green pigment. And there I have it, a leaf and the stem. So now that my painting is completely dry, my gold leaf is adhered to the canvas, my pigment is dry, my dark part of the stem and leaf are dry, I'm going to put a layer of hooker green and yellow to make a lighter green. I'm going to go ahead and highlight the center of the stem by just following it around and using this color that I've created with the hooker green and yellow to accent this area. And that's perfect. Come up into this area, and now that it's dry, I'm going to create like a triangle of pattern which will caress the center of the flower. There. Leonardo da Vinci wrote about using a mirror often as a creative tool to see the reflection of his objects in the painting. So we can take this mirror and look at what our flower looks like and just get a feel for what it would look like in a distorted reflection. So now we're ready for our reflection. We've got the thought of the shape of the flower in our mind, and we're going to start by tapping with an angled brush. I'm using a nice large angled brush so I can get shapes, horizontal shapes, all the way down my painting. Go down to where my gold leaf is. And I'm going to put another row. I have just a small amount of white paint on my brush. And as the paint dwindles off the brush, it changes the consistency of what ends up on the canvas. I'm doing this on purpose. So I've done a few rows. I'm going to take my brush and just pull a couple vertical strokes over that to distort it so it doesn't look quite so rigid. Now, in order to create my reflection of the flower, I'm going to continue, wet up my brush just a little bit, and I'm going to continue rounding in the direction of the flower. So all this movement, tapping, 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 over in the direction of the flower. This is going to create movement in your painting in the direction of the flower, but also you've got movement with the gold leaf that you created earlier. So this is how you create interest in composition. So continue this pattern all the way down, filling up the entire left side of the canvas. It's important to continue a few small marks down past the stem. So this movement has mimicked the shape of the flower in reverse. So now I'm going to take out my Liquitex splatter brush. I'm going to use the flat one, and because it comes in either flat or round. And how you use a splatter brush is you get it nice and wet, dip it in your paint. The wetter it is, the larger the drips will be. And you're going to make some splatters coming down from the flower in the same direction of your reflection marks. Let that white paint splatter come off the splatter brush. Don't have enough. Take your time with this so that you only get one chance at it. So you want to make sure that you're getting your splatters exactly where you want them. Still didn't have enough paint on my brush. And I'm going to there. Now they're coming off. Okay. And I'm just going to carry those splatters right down. Good. So my splatters are nice and round, but I want a few of them to be a little larger. I'm going to take a small brush and I'm going to just expand a few of my splatters so that they're nice and big. I couldn't do this with the splatter brush simply because I didn't have enough control over it to make the exact size I needed. But the randomness you get from the splatter, you cannot duplicate with a brush very easily. So now I've got my white splatters coming down from the flower, going in the shape of the flower stem, which is perfect. It's time for me to touch up my flower. I'm going to add some red and put a few marks inside my flower. I'm going to pick up some yellow colors on my palette. Just create some interest inside the center of your flower. And there you have it. So I'm going to take some purple and brush it over the pigment area just to add a little more interest. And I like the way that turned out. So I'm going to add a little more and just drag the purple over the inside of that flower. Just adding a few details. This is the area that you want to add the details because that is the focal point. If you squint your eyes and you look at your painting, what you see is your focal point. And of course, it's your flower, which might have been a little obvious to you. But the practice of squinting your eyes is so helpful. So now that your painting has all the details in the flower, the final step is to take purple from your initial painting of the background and your nice big brush and cover over areas of the gold leaf randomly. This will smooth out any rough edges and it will also blend your flower into your painting. So we've learned how to apply gold leaf. We've used pigment effectively to create an environmental flower. We've even learned how to use gesso to repurpose a canvas.